comes to mind.
Okay, so this movie, Death of a Unicorn, I mean, the name alone is pretty wild. Right?
Yeah, I've seen the poster around. It's got Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we've got the Rotten Tomatoes pages for it right here. And like the whole premise is so bizarre.
Bizarre how?
Well, it's a horror comedy where they accidentally kill a unicorn.
Wait, they what?
Yeah, they hit it with their car. It's like their whole big problem in the film.
Okay, so it's like a creature feature than like a monster movie.
Kind of, but with a unicorn.
Wrong.
And then you've got Richard E. Grant in the mix, too.
Oh, wow. He's a great actor. What's his role?
He plays this billionaire who wants to use the unicorn for something.
Use it how? Like, what could he possibly want with a dead unicorn?
Well, that's part of the mystery, but it's definitely not your typical heartwarming unicorn story.
No kidding. So we're going deep on this today. Death of a unicorn, the whole 9 yards.
Exactly. We're going to break it all down, the plot, what the critics are saying, how the audiences are reacting, and basically try to figure out what this movie is even trying to be.
Yeah, because mixing horror and comedy is a tough one to pull off.
It really is. And these Rotten Tomatoes pages are like a gold mine of information.
For sure. You can see what the general consensus is even before you've seen the movie.
Right, and you can see the score and like whether people actually enjoyed it or not.
All right, so let's dive into it then. Where do we start?
Well, let's start with the actual plot. Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega play a father and daughter.
Okay, I didn't realize they were playing father and daughter.
Yeah, and they're driving to some kind of retreat, and bam, they hit this unicorn.
So this unicorn, like, is it a majestic, beautiful creature?
Not exactly. The critics' consensus describes it as a splattery creature feature.
Oh, okay, so we're not talking about My Little Pony here.
Definitely not. This unicorn is more on the creepy side.
Got it. So definitely leaning into the horror part of horror comedy.
Yeah, for sure. And if you need more convincing, it's rated R.
R, really? What for?
Well, they list some drug use, language, gore, strong violent content.
Wow. Okay, so maybe not a movie to watch with the kids then.
Probably not unless your kids are really into like gory creature features.
Right. Okay, so we got a pretty clear picture of the premise. Now, what about the critics? What are they saying?
Well, the tomatometer is sitting at 57%.
57%.
Yeah.
That's basically a coin toss, right?
Pretty much. It's based on 104 reviews, so not a small sample size either.
So some critics loved it and some hated it.
Yeah, pretty much. You've got some critics like Chris Wagner from the San Francisco Chronicle who said, it never quite makes the leap from situation to actual story, but it has plenty of fun trying. He gave it 2.5 out of 4 stars.
Okay, so he's saying it's enjoyable, but maybe lacks a bit of depth.
Yeah, that seems to be his take. Then you've got Nell Minogue from Movie Mom, who was much more positive.
What'd she say?
She praised the movie's audacity and imagination and the commitment of the cast and gave it a B.
So a solid, positive review.
Yeah, definitely. But then you've got someone like Adam Graham from the Detroit News who really didn't like it.
What did he say? I'm curious now.
He called the unicorn a dog and gave it a C.
A dog. Wow, he did not hold back.
Nope, not at all. Then there's Robert Dennerstein from Dennerstein Unleashed, who said the movie sheds its horror aspirations and turns unicorny.
Unicorny, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
That's up for debate, I guess. He also mentioned a potentially divisive emotional ending.
Interesting. So maybe the tone is a bit uneven?
Possibly. But Motley Stormer from MovieRealist.com had a different take.
What did she think?
She loved it. She called the script near pitch perfect and praised the balance of humor, shock, and gore. She gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
Okay, so some critics are really digging that horror comedy blend.
Yeah, and then there's Christopher Lloyd from the film Yap. He described it as a fable, horror black comedy, and a clumsy critique of the rich.
Wow, that's a lot of genres packed into one movie.
Right, and he pointed out that these unicorns aren't your typical cute mythological ponies.
Sounds like they went for a more unconventional take on the whole unicorn thing.
Exactly, which seems to be what's dividing the critics. Some love the weirdness, and some just don't get it.
Okay, so critics are all over the place. What about the general audience? What do they think?
Well, the popcorn meter, which is based on audience reviews, is showing fewer than 50 verified ratings.
So not a ton of data to go off of yet.
Right, it's still pretty early, but we do have a few comments to look at.
Like what?
Robert D. gave it 5 stars and specifically mentioned Paul Rudd's character's motivation.
Interesting. Maybe the acting is a strong point.
Could be. Orlando G. gave it 4 stars and said they enjoyed the horror comedy aspect but wished there was more gore.
More gore. Some people just can't get enough.
Apparently. Then there's Rob, who called it a super fun fantasy adventure and praised the leads. He gave it 4.5 stars.
So some people are definitely loving it.
Yeah, DeWitt Griffin III was also a fan. He gave it 5 stars.
Wow, so we've got some very enthusiastic reactions.
Definitely. And Mike said the film was exactly what was advertised, horror and unicorns, and gave it 4 stars.
So it seems like the film delivers on what it promises.
Yeah, but then you've got Monroe, who gave it 3 stars and said they wouldn't watch it again.
What didn't they like?
They thought the ending was kind of stupid. They also mentioned decent acting, but overall not a movie they'd revisit.
And so even with such a crazy premise, you can't please everyone.
It seems that way. All right, so moving on to the people behind this wild ride.
Okay, tell me.
The director and writer is Alex Sharfman, and this is actually his feature-length debut.
Oh, wow. So this is his first big movie. That's interesting.
It is. And the main cast, as we've mentioned, is Paul Rudd, Jenna Ortega, Richard E. Grant.
Yeah, and you said there were others listed as well, right?
Yeah. Will Poulter is listed as Shepard and Téa Leoni as Belinda.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So quite a cast for a horror comedy about a unicorn.
I know, right? All right, so moving on to the more like this section of the Rotten Tomatoes page.
Oh, this is where they recommend other movies you might like.
Exactly, and it's always interesting to see what they come up with.
So what are they recommending?
Well, we've got The Invisible Raptor, some like Rare Rumors Spree 2, and Beast Mode.
Interesting mix. Anything jump out at you?
Well, a lot of them seem to be in the creature feature genre.
Yeah, that makes sense given the whole unicorn situation.
Right, and some of them have pretty decent tomatometer and popcorn fair reader scores.
So if you're into this kind of movie, there are other options out there.
Exactly. And there's one more thing I wanted to mention.
What's that?
In the related movie news section, there's a headline that says, "The death of a unicorn cast share, why Paul Rudd is terrible to work with."
Wait, really? Is he actually terrible to work with?
Well, we don't know for sure, but the headline definitely suggests a more lighthearted tone.
Interesting. So maybe they had a lot of fun making this movie.
It seems that way.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny considering the dark premise.
Yeah, that's a nice contrast.
And lastly, if you want to see more about the movie, there are trailers, featurettes, and photos available on the page.
So basically you can get a pretty good sense of the movie before even watching it.
Exactly. All right, so to wrap up our deep dive into Death of a Unicorn, it seems like we're looking at a truly unique film.
Yeah, it's definitely trying to do something different.
For sure. It's got horror, comedy, fantasy, and even a bit of social commentary thrown in there.
And the critics are totally split on whether it works or not.
Yeah. Some love it, some hate it, but everyone seems to agree it's something different.
And the audience reactions so far seem mostly positive.
Yeah, but it's still early days. We'll have to see how it plays out with wider audiences.
For sure. All right, so what's the final takeaway here? What should our listeners be thinking about?
Well, I think the big question is, what does a movie like Death of a Unicorn say about storytelling today?
Yeah, that's a good one. Like, our audience is looking for something truly original, even if it's a bit messy or strange.
Exactly. Is there a place for movies that break the mold and defy expectations?
Or do we just want the same old familiar stories?
I guess that's for each individual viewer to decide.
Absolutely. But Death of a Unicorn definitely gives us something to think about.
It certainly does. And maybe next time you're scrolling through your streaming options, you'll remember this bizarre little film.
And maybe even give it a watch.
And who knows, maybe you'll love it or maybe you'll hate it. But one thing's for sure, it won't be boring.
You got that right.